Thank you for coming. Welcome, and thank you for attending the Mindfulness, Meaning and Resilience Masterclass. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we are situated on the ancestral lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations and pay my respects to the traditional custodians and their elders, both past and present. In today's session, we have Dr. Margaret Ross, who will guide you through an experiential session in mindfulness interventions. This will facilitate your understanding of how you ascribe meaning to your work and everyday lives, and how mindfulness may promote personal resilience. She will debunk a few myths around resilience as well. She is the lead psychologist at St Vincent's Psychosocial Cancer Care and Palliative Care Unit, where she treats patients, families and provides regular debriefing and for support staff and the medical staff and treating teams. She has worked as a senior therapist in both inpatient and outpatient mental health units and holds a particular focus on using mindfulness interventions to treat mental health issues, cope with chronic illness, cancer and end-of-life care. Margaret knows much about mindfulness and the therapeutic aspects of mindfulness. She's actually studied under Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who is probably the guru of mindfulness and has his own hospital in the United States. But I'll let Margaret talk further about this. But please welcome Margaret to the podium.
Thank you. Is that loud enough? Is that okay? You can hear me? Welcome. Thanks for having me. I have to say I do a lot of lecturing and this is the first time I've ever produced a master class. And given language can be so gender bound, I toyed with the idea of perhaps making it a mistress class or madam class, but unfortunately I think that conjures up all sorts of connotations I'm not quite aiming for. So look, I want it to be known that I've tried to make this the least academic lecture I could. Okay, because I can throw statistics at you, I can throw findings at you, but I am an academic, but I am first and foremost a psychologist, I'm a clinician, and I really want to make sure that anything that I give you today can be really useful, really practical, and things that you can take away with you in your study, in your work, but also in your life. I'm not wanting to just talk to you as students, I want to talk to you as humans. And how this can go beyond your study and also into deeper aspects of your life. I think usually I say to people at this point, please interrupt me, but I think that there's some time at the end for questions, is that right? Okay. Either way, if you're really unclear, just grab me. Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be sucking down tea as I do this because I've got a bit of a sore throat, so, okay. Okay, so the talk is a bit of a layered one, by which I mean that we'll start with kind of general aspects of resilience, okay? And then we'll sort of delve into the more deeper layers of how to cultivate resilience in your life. So we'll start with the cognitive aspects, how you sort of think about things, then moving into emotional aspects using mindfulness, and then into the existential and what is really deeply meaningful for you and how you can kind of find points of meaning in your life. So I'll begin by talking about resilience and why I actually don't like the word resilience. And then I'll talk about mindfulness, what it is, and how it can help build resilience, how it can kind of steady your attention in the face of quite intense emotion. Hello, hi. We've just been talking about you. Not really. So how we can use mindfulness to kind of steady our thinking in the face of quite, when life gets quite tough for you. And also the importance of actually really embodying your life fully. And being present as well, and how that can build resilience. And then at the end, we'll talk about meaning and the importance of purpose in your life as well, and how that can give you resilience as well. So I'll be doing some mindfulness exercises throughout the talk, which I invite you to engage in. Okay, so that it's not entirely cerebral and it's not me kind of going at the beginning here. I would like you to have a bit of a tasting platter of the different ways in which one can use mindfulness in their life. And how you can sort of tap into sources of meaning. So I invite you to do these exercises, but you do not have to if you don't want to, okay? They're not compulsory. You can just observe them if you don't want to partake in them, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm just really aiming for a rich learning experience, and so you can have a more felt and kind of a deeper understanding of some of the concepts that I'm wanting to talk about today. But again, please know it's not compulsory to do that, okay? So how one cultivates resilience, it's not just psychological, even though that will be the focus of what I'm talking about today. The physical aspect also plays an enormous part of developing resilience. If you don't take care of the physical aspects of your body and how your body functions, this can have an enormous bearing on your ability to cope with stress. So things like nutrition, adequate rest and sleep, these are all things that are so important. I'm not going to talk about that much today, but just it's important that I at least give it a cursory acknowledgement at the beginning. The other thing that I really want to impress upon you is it's important that you know what stress looks like in your body. And really listen up here because this is important. Stress can affect us at the weakest link in our physical makeup. And what that looks like for you may be very different to what it looks like in someone else. So, for example, if you're stressed, it can raise blood sugar in diabetes, it can cause breathing difficulties in asthmatics, it can precipitate migraines in people who are vulnerable to migraine. So how stress will affect you is going to be a little bit different. So we all have a little stress signature in that way, and I really invite you to kind of get to know what your body is telling you. Because, as it shows up in your body, it can be very, very, very different to others. Okay, so from a mental health perspective, who here does not want to feel more emotionally balanced? I didn't think so. So, we really, from a mental health perspective, we really want to learn how mindfulness and resilience can help us deal with the slings and arrows that life inevitably doles out to us. And it's not just about learning how to be resilient from the knocks of life, but it's also about how to inhabit our life more fully, be more present, so we can enjoy it and the rich variety that it gives us. So, and then there's a spiritual aspect, or how we connect with points of meaning in our lives, which I'll discuss towards the end. It may be religious, it may not be. It's just how you find meaning in your life. Okay, it'd be very individual. Okay, so just a quick word on resilience and why I don't really like that word, at least in recent times, because I think the word resilience has been completely bastardised by the corporate world. Unfortunately, has become far more about how can we make our workers more resilient so that they'll improve productivity, take less time off, and basically so that stress is less likely to interfere with their work. And unfortunately, it sends a bit of a message that stress is seen as a bit of a failure for the individual to cope with increasing and actually chronic and relentless work demands. And that's not what I'm talking about here. What I really want to impress upon you is the real resilience. It's not about just your work, it's resilience in life. How to take care of your emotional world, how to navigate turbulent waters, how you can be more present. And let's be honest, life is stressful, so you're going to get waves thrown at you. So this talk is really about how to kind of surf those waves, if you like, and how we can get through adversity without our mind being our own worst enemy. I could talk about this for a week, by the way. It's really hard to kind of cram this into an hour. So I've tried to crystallise the main kind of points, and I'm happy to extend on anything later on in the questions if anyone wants me to. Okay, so I want to start with discussing just some common ways of thinking and appraising situations that can either weaken our resilience or it can boost it. It's kind of like the first layer of the onion, if you like. So we'll just start with the general one here, okay? And we'll start with a little exercise. So if you just have a look at the 4 statements I've got up here. You have a certain amount of intelligence and you can't really do much to change it. Maybe I'll use the clicker here. There you go. There, that one. You can learn new things, but you can't really change your basic intelligence. No matter who you are, you can significantly change your intelligence level, or you can change even your basic intelligence level considerably. I want you to just take a few moments to have a little think about which statement you agree with. Now, this is a private exercise. I'm not going to ask you to indicate any of that. I just want you to figure out where you think the statement is most true. And I'll tell you why that's important in a moment. Okay, we got it? Yep, beautiful. Okay, so if you chose a response that was on the left, then you are likely to endorse a fixed mindset, at least in this instance. If you chose a response on the right, then you are more likely to endorse a growth mindset in this instance. I love that. Yes, someone's punching the air. So if you're interested, the actual true response is that actually, yes, we can significantly change our intelligence level. Because neuroplasticity, which we've just come to the fore in the last maybe 15 years, tells us that actually there's a lot we can do to improve our intelligence. Okay, but I digress. I need us to understand a little bit more about what a fixed versus a growth mindset means for us. So I've just sort of popped it in a table here. And this work is actually taken from Carol Dweck. I've put the web address on the bottom there, and these slides will be available to people as well. This is actually really, really good work. So you can check it out if you want to know a bit more about it. So what if you do have a fixed versus a growth mindset as a bit of a default? Well, it's a bit of a lot, actually. So let's have a look at the table. You can see the differences here. So if you have a fixed mindset, okay, the belief is that, okay, intelligence or talent is fixed. Some have it, some don't. If you have a growth mindset, intelligence and talent can be developed. Now, what does that mean in the face of mistakes and setbacks? Well, if you have a fixed mindset, it means that you're more likely to respond like this. This means I don't have it, I'm not smart enough, or I'm stupid. If you have a growth mindset, you see it as an opportunity to learn. In the face of challenges, if you have a fixed mindset, you're more likely to avoid them for fear of failure. If you have a growth mindset, you tend to embrace challenges more. Now, this is, again, not a blanket rule, and you're not always going to endorse a fixed mindset, and that's it. You can have a growth mindset in other instances as well, but it's just something to be mindful of. In terms of obstacles, if you have a fixed mindset, you're more likely to give up quicker and easier. Growth mindset, you'll persist in the face of setbacks and mistakes. In terms of effort, someone with a fixed mindset tends to have this erroneous belief that actually, if you've got talent, you don't need to put in as much effort. Whereas the growth mindset sees that effort is necessary to a path of mastery. There's a book out there, I can't remember the name of the title, I'll remember at 3 a.m. tonight. It's when I remember things. But it's 10,000 hours. And basically it was a guru who went around to all these people who had mastered their craft and so forth, and found that it takes around about 10,000 hours of dedication to honing their craft and developing their skill. So, people with a growth mindset appreciate that effort is necessary. Okay, and criticism. We can get defensive in response to negative feedback if we have a fixed mindset. But with a growth mindset, you can use it to kind of further develop yourself. Okay, we feel threatened by the success of others in a fixed mindset, whereas we can find less as an inspiration in the success of others in a growth mindset. So the result is that if you have a fixed mindset, you can plateau early and achieve less than your potential. You are more likely to quit. Whereas if you have a growth mindset, you're more likely to kind of reach higher levels of achievement. You continue to kind of want to learn and expand. Okay? Is that making sense so far? Okay. All right. So I think then this is just one area of our life. Now, it's easy to sort of see that if you look at this, a fixed mindset can be pretty brutal and it can give you a pretty nasty ride of things. Whereas a growth mindset is a little bit kinder to you and actually encourages you far more than the fixed mindset. And this is just one area of our lives. If we were to think about self-concept from this perspective, and if you had a belief instead about, intelligence and talent, but if you had, an idea, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, you can see easily how this can, create feelings of depression or anxiety in this sort of mindset. Okay. So can we actually move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? The answer is yes, you can. Even if it's your default position, you can still do something with this, and that's the really good news. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to listen for our fixed mindset. Okay? In order to catch those fixed mindset thoughts, you will need to be mindful of your thoughts. You'll need to be aware of when they come up. Okay? So essentially what it looks like is this. If you're facing a challenge and you have a fixed mindset, this is the sort of stuff that you're likely to say to yourself, what if I fail? I will be a failure. Am I sure I can do it? Maybe I don't have the ability. When you're facing a setback, this would have been easy if I had talent. I knew it was a risk. Now I've shown the world how limited I am. And then facing criticism. It's not my fault. It was something or someone else's fault. Okay, we can get quite defended. Or we can get quite wounded. Their criticism means I thought you were capable, now I see you're not. So that's step one. Listen out for that fixed mindset. And step two is this. Recognise that you actually have a choice at this point. Okay, and while your default position may be the fixed mindset, you then, if you catch it, then you're in a position to be able to do something with it. So while initially it may be the thing that comes up for you is that it's like, oh gosh, what if I fail? Well, now that you've caught that, okay, now you can do something about it. And this is what you can do. Speak back to your fixed mindset with a growth mindset. So you're listening for two voices here. You're listening for the fixed mindset, and then you're speaking back to it with a growth mindset. For example, what if I fail? I'll be fine. Most successful people have had failures along the way. Who knows that quote about, 9 out of 10 millionaires have declared themselves bankrupt at least once. I mean, that's pretty spectacular. Failure is the greatest way to learn, I've got to say. If you keep winning, you don't learn much, actually. So just something to think about. Am I sure I can do it? Maybe I don't have the ability. I'm not sure I can do it now, but I think I can, with time and effort. This would have been easy if I had talent. That's wrong. It takes a lot of practice to get good at this. And again, I refer you back to that 10,000 hours book. I knew it was a risk. Now I've shown the world how limited I am. What could you say back to this? You're going through it in your heads, but no one wants to speak. It's like if I say something, it'll be wrong. Is that it? That's a fixed mindset. So I knew it was a risk. Now I've shown the world how limited I am. If I don't try, I've already kind of failed here. And that's the only way I can move forward, actually, is if you take risks. It's not my fault. It was something or someone else's fault. Okay, if you blame people, you end up kind of giving over your power to do something about it. If I don't take responsibility, I can't fix it. I'll listen, however painful it is, and learn what I can. Okay? Their criticism means I thought you were capable, now I see you're not. At least I tried. Thank you. You get an extra chocolate when we do the chocolate exercise, okay? So changing a growth mindset is a matter of sort of speaking back to the fixed mindset. Okay. So to just summarise that, with practice, the growth mindset can actually become your default, okay? That's something that you can train your brain to do. So the key points in there is if you practice hearing both fixed and growth mindsets, practice acting on the growth mindset. Take on challenges, learn from setbacks and try again. And I just want to debunk a few things here as well. It's really important that there seems to be some wrong-headed idea out there that you have to have the strength to go it alone. And the research does not support this. People who consistently demonstrate resilience are ones that seek out assistance and accept support from others. And they're also more likely to find opportunities to give back to others as well. The other tidbit I would put in here is try and reframe criticism into coaching. Years ago, when I did my undergrad, which was in years starting 1996, I really sort of struggled with criticism. I was very wounded by it. I didn't actually see it as an opportunity to grow. One of the things that I came to kind of realise is that you need some guidance to develop your skill set. You can't just turn up and expect to do well without training, even if you are talented. So you're going to have to get some feedback and constructive criticism along the way. And if you sort of see it as a coaching session or the way of getting the best out of yourself, it's much easier to kind of go into that headspace and do something really constructive with it as well. So that's the first layer of the onion, okay? Sort of thinking about things from a cognitive level. How can we change our thinking? How can we think about our mindset that helps, promote resilience? Now, mindset is one thing and it's extremely important, but is that all there is? Maybe from a corporate point of view, but that feels very cerebral. But actually there's much more to developing resilience, so let's expand this to a deeper level. And there's two things in particular I'm going to focus on next. And there are two things that impact our resilience quite powerfully as well. So it's one thing to talk about growth mindsets and thinking, but then there is our emotional world. How we calm ourselves, how we regulate our emotions, how we deal with negative thinking, anxieties, how we take care of ourselves when life is rough, okay? And how we get through life when, without our minds being our own worst enemy. This is a big part of resilience. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that shortly. So the second point, similarly, resilience isn't just about dealing with those slings and arrows of life that I talked about before. It's about also how present we are in our lives, how present we are for the very, many rich and varied experiences that life has to offer. And how can we embody our lives so that we can live more fully? So it's not just about ducking and, trying to get away from the arrows or dealing with the arrows. How can we enjoy it? I love this. This is Instagram in one picture. And so I'm going to do some little exercises with you. Again, you don't have to do these, but to hopefully kind of tease out these two aspects and how we can kind of promote resilience with this. So enter mindfulness. Does anyone know what mindfulness is? There's nods. Of course you do. Mindfulness is the new sexy. It's everywhere. So what is mindfulness? I would ask for a definition, but you're kind of quiet, so I'll do it for you, okay? So it's really about a quality of attention that we bring to our moment-by-moment experience. And the way that it's defined, John Kabat-Zinn, who was the guru, who brought this to medicine, was that it is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. Sounds simple. Who's tried it, by the way? Yay! Lovely. Excellent. If you haven't tried it, we're going to try some very shortly. But now, from the resilience point of view, mindfulness can help us in a number of ways. But I'll reinforce the two major ways that it can be beneficial to us. So it helps us develop a different relationship to our emotional world. So it cultivates a quality of attention that helps stabilise our thinking. It helps sort of develop a way that we can respond more skillfully to intense and distressing emotions. And we can spend a lot of our lives avoiding distress and emotions to our detriment. It's no coincidence that we are the most addicted and distracted society in the history of mankind. And Brené Brown talks about this because it numbs our emotions and our distress. I had a lecturer who famously said to us once, it's not emotions that screw up our lives, it's what we do to avoid them, which I thought was very, very powerful. So mindfulness helps us be with our emotions and our thoughts without needing to kind of numb them out or avoid them in ways that could be destructive or take us away from living fully. And then secondly, the other thing that mindfulness does is that it's really about becoming more fully engaged with life. Okay, experiencing life more fully and to be more present so we can enjoy it. So, and for the resilience researchers, mindfulness looks like it has a lot to offer. I promise you this is the only academic slide I've got. I wouldn't be a psychologist if I didn't talk about how it was empirically supported. But and there's lots of benefits to mindfulness here. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but this is just some of the stuff that it's found to be really, really helpful for. It has a beneficial health effect at a genetic level. Like, that's mind-blowing. Researchers in Spain and France and the US found the first evidence of specific molecular changes in the body following a period of intensive mindfulness in a way that it reduces inflammatory cytokines in the body and alters gene expression in a very positive way. And then, having a look at this, reducing rumination, which is a key feature of depression and anxiety. Let me just sort of define rumination. It says it's that mulling over again and again of problems, negative thinking, anxieties, and it can really drive us into a bit of a negative spiral and perpetuate the depression and anxiety feeling. So it's good for stress reduction. It boosts our working memory, improves our focus and attention. It makes you less emotionally reactive, in a good way, in a way that not that you don't feel, but it what do they say? You respond rather than react on autopilot. Increases cognitive flexibility and it decreases distress that you have as a result of chronic illness, improves well-being of people with medical conditions, including cancer. And we run a mindfulness program with my cancer patients at St Vincent's. So yes, it's been found to be very, very useful. And actually, it is strongly associated with resilience. So it shows that people who are more mindful, so people who score higher on measures of mindfulness, are also far better able to cope with difficult thoughts and emotions. They also reported higher scores of subjective well-being and increased life satisfaction. So how do we explain this? So it's thought that the mechanism that whereby mindfulness sort of helps promote resilience is that it helps short-circuit negative ruminations and chains of associations that keep people in this sort of relentless feedback loop of negative thinking, which is, I think we've all got them, these old tapes that play on repeat of just like negative kind of, when our minds can be really brutal, actually, and they can kind of get stuck onto you. So mindfulness has really got a wonderful way of kind of being able to stop those endless looping negative tapes. And it makes you far more present, so you're more aware and you enjoy your life. So as a result, mindfulness is suddenly everywhere. Science has caught up with the monks and the mystics. By the way, mindfulness is not new. This comes out of traditions of Buddhism and Hinduism. Also, there's a lot of religious traditions that practice mindfulness in various ways. And because we've realised how cultivating our attention in a particular way holds many benefits, it's now sort of taken off like wildfire. However, there is a problem with these pictures, and for the people who have tried mindfulness before, would you like to tell me what the problem is with these pictures? They look really relaxed. Yeah, would you say? Did you want to say?
Yeah, it's hard to get into those positions sometimes.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, they have a way of sexifying it up. And that, and there's always all those women who are, needle thin, cross-legged on a rock that looks really uncomfortable, and and there's a beautiful sort of waterfall behind, and they're so serene. But if anyone has ever tried mindfulness here, that's not what it's about. You may feel relaxed, you may feel a bit blissed out, but that's actually not the aim of what we're doing here. They're kind of like nice side effects. What we are trying to do is trying to cultivate our attention and train our attention to stay on a focal point and bring it back again and again and again. So that we can, it's the practice of learning to come back, okay? So that then we're not kind of a slave to our thinking. We don't get slammed up against the wall and we're sort of at the mercy of these sort of negative, habituated sort of automatic thinking that can make you feel really lousy. So it sounds simple, just learning to bring your attention back whenever it wavers and whenever your thinking hijacks your focus. So let's see how it works. I want to drag you out of your heads for a minute. Okay. I'm just watching you as you read this. So right now you are missing the vast majority of what is happening around you. You are missing the events unfolding in your body, in the distance, and right in front of you. And by marshalling your attention to these words, helpfully framed in a distinct screen of white, you are ignoring an unthinkably large amount of information that continues to bombard your senses. It'll be the hum of the fluorescent lights, the background sound in the auditorium, the place where your chair is pressing against your legs and your back, where your tongue is resting in your mouth, if it's touching the roof of your mouth or not, the tension you may be holding in your shoulders or your jaw, and the map of cool or warm places in your body, and the temperature of the air on your skin, on your cheeks, and the blurred view of your own shoulders in your peripheral vision. Now, I know you were so focused, so intently on my talk, I hope, you didn't notice these things until I pointed them out to you. Okay? Now that's important. The simple reason is because our brains can only pay attention to a certain amount of bandwidth of what's happening in any one moment. So it singles out the most relevant and vital things to pay attention to and ignores the vast majority of our experience. And this is adaptive ignorance, and it eases our cognitive overload, so it's a good thing. And while it might be good at making us more efficient in our goal-oriented day-to-day, it also makes us inhabit a largely unlived and unremembered life. We have divided attention, we're not fully present, and we live in our heads a lot of the time. I think that the statistic was something like we spend between 90 to 95% of our thinking and our present moment ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. And so we actually spend very little time inhabiting the present moment. So I want to invite you to do a little exercise with me now to really demonstrate this. I'm going to talk you through a little mindfulness exercise where you can really fully appreciate the present moment. And hopefully it'll be like turning up the colour of a dull TV screen. And if you like chocolate, you are really going to want to pay attention to this one. Do your other lecturers give you chocolate? Okay, so there'll be someone passing around some squares of chocolate. If you could please take a square, okay? But please don't eat it yet. You're going to want to. Just notice that reaction. Just take one and just leave it there while I speak with you, okay? And this guy over here gets two. Yeah. The first one he sort of broke the ice. All right, so while we do this, I'm just going to talk a little bit about chocolate. The secret of the cacao tree was discovered 2,000 years ago in the tropical rainforests of Mexico and Central America. The ancient people of Central America mixed ground cacao seeds with chili peppers and cornmeal to make a very spicy, frothy drink. It wasn't until the 1500s that Europeans tasted chocolate brought back to Spain from the Americas. A cacao pod contains about 30 to 50 almond-sized seeds, which is enough to make 7 chocolate bars. And for the most part, no one really heard that. You did? Another piece of chocolate. No. Okay. But I really want to anchor your attention very, very carefully now. So, you can arrange yourself in a little comfortable position. And as you do this... Oh, okay. Sorry. Now, please hold the piece of chocolate in your hand. We all got it? You didn't get one? Has everyone's got one? Yeah, all good. Okay. All right. So, comfortable, got your piece of chocolate. All right. Now, allow your eyes to close. And I'm going to continue to do some instructions with you. Okay? Or, if what, you can just sort of lower your gaze to a spot in front of you so that you're less distracted. I'm going to begin by feeling the weight and the shape of that chocolate. Bring it to your nose. Smell the chocolate and just notice how it smells. Notice how your body responds to that smell. Is your mouth watering? Does it want me to hurry the hell up so you can stick it in your mouth and chew it? Yeah, you can. Okay, so just notice that. Now with your eyes still closed, place the chocolate in your mouth. Don't chew it yet. Just let it rest on your tongue. I really want you to just taste that chocolate. Where can you taste it more? And just notice the texture changing as it begins to melt. Notice your impulse to chew or swallow it, but see if you can notice a little bit more. And as the chocolate rests in your mouth, just really absorb your attention on the sweetness. And taste the subtle flavours that distinguish it from other chocolates. How would you describe this taste to someone who has never had chocolate before? Notice how the texture continues to change and your very strong urge to chew and swallow. Which side of the mouth do you taste it more fully? With your eyes closed now, you can chew and swallow the chocolate. Can you follow the chocolate as it travels all the way down your throat and into your stomach? Now noticing the residual taste just lingering in your mouth, on your palate, on your tongue. Any feelings of satisfaction. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your attention back to the front. How is this different to the way you normally eat chocolate? You can actually taste it. Yes. Sorry? Yes. We usually when we eat chocolate, we've got 100 other things going on. We might be talking to someone, we've got Facebook open or this or that, and all of a sudden we've eaten half a family block. Easy to do, and we haven't really tasted it. So what did you learn from eating that chocolate mindfully? Absolutely. Yeah. It really augments the experience. Yeah. So if you think of it this way, what difference would it make to your life if we did more things like that, more meaningfully? Yeah, absolutely. You're more present. Now, the reason that happened is because you didn't have Facebook, and I talked you through a pretty torturous process of waiting to chew and swallow your chocolate. But the way that it was just sort of, not a brain trick, it was just a way of, I was able to just pull your attention and absorb it into one thing, so that all you could focus on was that little piece of chocolate. And it was probably one of the best pieces of chocolate you'll ever eat.
People eat less when they...
Absolutely, yeah. Well, they're more mindful of it, yeah. So mindfulness is used a lot in, well, all sorts of things, but when you're more mindful and you're more aware of what you're putting in your mouth, A, it's healthier, B, you don't just do it mindlessly. We do so much of our life on autopilot, so much. If I had more chocolate, I would have said, okay, now just eat this any way you want and get you to compare. But the next time you eat chocolate, just try that again. Okay, so I think there's a Zen master, John Daido Luri Roshi. He died, but he puts it more beautifully than I can. He just said, when we miss the moment, we miss our life. The present moment is the only place you can ever find life. And we can get very wrapped up in our inner conversation. And most of us go through life only sort of vaguely aware of the moment-to-moment reality. So we eat, but we don't taste. We look, we don't really see. And we listen, but we don't really hear. So this is where mindfulness can actually really help you inhabit the moment a lot more. Now, it sounds easy, and when you have someone directing your attention and talking you through it, it is quite easy to rein your attention into one place, but let me show you that's not always that way. I'm going to get you to do something now, if you would like, again, invitational only. I'm going to get you to do a breathing exercise. And for the next minute of clock time, I'm going to ask you to just bring your attention to your breath. Okay? Just notice the movement of the muscles as the breath moves in, and the gentle deflation of your lungs as you exhale. Just noticing the coolness of the air as you breathe in, and noticing how it's slightly warmer as you breathe out. And just continue to notice the flow and the movement of air as you breathe. And we'll do that for a few moments. Now I'm just bringing your attention back to the room. How many nanoseconds was it before you found your focus being hijacked by thinking? Okay, so the thing here is that mindfulness is not always easy. It requires quite a bit of practice and learning to bring your attention back. It will be hijacked all the time. And that's okay, that's what minds do. Minds are very busy, even in Zen masters. So I just wanted to show you, if you've got strong anchors, like a piece of chocolate, someone actually guiding you through it, it can be easier to stabilise your attention. Something like that is a little bit harder because there's so many, your attention can roam. How many people thought, God, that's loud? Yeah, yep. How many people went, God, that chocolate looks amazing. What am I having for dinner tonight? God, this is boring. When will she start talking again? It's going loud, it's really long. So these are the things that your mind will tell you again and again and again. So it's about kind of just going, okay, yeah, thanks for that, and bringing it back to your focus. Okay, now I've got to do something here to try and get out of that and show you another way to do a breathing exercise. I'm just going to show you. This one's a little bit easier, and actually these apps are available everywhere. Have you seen these? Okay, now try it for a minute of clock time. As the shape expands, you inhale. And as it decreases, you exhale. Kind of mesmerising. So as it goes up, inhale and exhale. And just watch the movement and see if you can sync your breathing. What do you notice about this one compared to the other one? Sorry? It's easier, yeah. It anchors you visually as well. Sorry? Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Some people will find visual much more engaging. Some people find it a bit distracting. Yeah. Yeah. How do I keep up with this? Yeah. So there's not what I think the way that you respond to various, you can do mindfulness of yoga, you can do mindfulness of walking, you can do breath, you can do body scan. There's all sorts of things. Some will find some ways of being mindful easier than others. So it's just good to be aware of the different ways that you can actually anchor your thinking. Essentially, what I wanted to share with you is that so people who are more mindful, people who are more resilient, they just find that they're able to kind of train their attention. They're able to bring their attention back to what they're focusing on. It's not that they don't have distracting thoughts. It doesn't mean that they don't have distressing emotions or that, but they're just able to kind of, whenever their focus is hijacked by other thoughts, they're better able to direct their attention back to where they want it to be. And now those were kind of general mindfulness exercises that can really pull you into the present. I want to speak a little bit now and go to another deeper layer again. To sort of talk about a more specific way that mindfulness can kind of help build resilience and short-circuit rumination and problematic thinking. People who are more mindful are better able to observe their thoughts without getting caught up in what they contain. By which I'll try and explain this a little bit by thinking about a concept of observing mind and thinking mind. So when we're in thinking mind, this is when we sort of get caught up in the content of our thoughts. So we kind of believe what they contain. We identify with those thoughts. So if I'm saying I'm not good enough, or I'm this, or I'm not fit, or I'm blah, 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 then you kind of get thrown around by that and you believe it, or you're more likely to believe it. But if you're in observing mind, then you're able to kind of step back a little bit, notice that you're having the thought, and you're just observing the thought stream. So you're not as fused with those ideas, not as identified with it. So the metaphor that we use when we're in observing mind is that we have a Teflon mind. So allowing thoughts to sort of come and go, not holding on to any particular thought, and thoughts aren't getting stuck. They just sort of move seamlessly in and out. Doesn't mean that they don't sometimes grab you and then you learn to kind of unhook. But the point is that we're just more likely to kind of step back. And what I'm going to teach you in a moment is a really quite powerful way of being able to unhook from unhelpful thoughts. It's something that we do in acceptance and commitment therapy, if anyone's heard of that ACT. And it can be really, really powerful in reducing unhelpful and very kind of negative rumination. Okay, so now, I'm going to invite you to do this. You do not have to do this, okay? Might be a little bit uncomfortable. So if you don't want to do this, you can simply observe what I'm doing, okay? You don't have to do this. Or if you'd like to try it, hopefully you can experience the power of moving from thinking mind into observing mind as we workshop this. Okay, and again, it's really helpful for when you get sort of stuck into unhelpful ideas. So if you wish to engage in this exercise, and it is a private exercise, I will not be asking anyone to share this. You don't share it with each other, you just keep it personally within yourself, so your privacy is protected here. So you take a piece of paper, or you can use your phone. And if you think about, because our minds can get stuck into us, okay? I think that's pretty much everyone on the planet. If you think of a problematic thought that comes up for you every so often, if you think of it this way, if I was to listen in or if I was to tune into your self-talk and heard your mind giving you a hard time, what would I hear? Now, you don't have to do a very painful thing here. You can just sort of look at a problematic thought. If it don't feel that you need to go too deep here, but just so that you can get a bit of a feel of what it feels like to move from a problematic thought and unhook from that. Have a little think. And one of these thoughts usually start with I'm ... or I'm not ... The one I hear the most as a therapist, I have to say, is I'm not good enough. I hear that all the time. So you can just jot that thought down on your phone, or if you're actually using a piece of paper, write it in the middle of your page. Now again, please keep it private. Allow others around you to keep theirs private too. Okay, so I'll just give you a few moments to do that. Okay. All ready to go? This is where the energy in the room feels a little bit flat, and it will for a little bit, but don't worry, we're not going to stay here for long, okay? We'll workshop it. Now this is the bit that's a wee bit uncomfortable, but I actually want you to be aware of how this thought impacts you every time it comes into your awareness. For the next 10 seconds, I want you to hold this idea in your awareness, and as you do this, just notice what happens in your body, what arises as you hold this idea in your awareness, and just make a note of it when you hold this idea in your awareness. Just for the next 10 seconds. As I say, it's not going to feel comfortable, but we're going to move and hopefully workshop that. Okay? So just noticing what arises in your body, any feelings or sensations. And now let's workshop it a little bit. Okay. Now go back to that statement, and I want you to do this. In front of what you wrote, I want you to write, I'm having the thought that ... in front of your statement, so it reads like one whole sentence. For example, if you wrote, and for those of you who are observing it rather than actually doing this, if you wrote, I'm not good enough, and then you put this in front of it, then you are saying, I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough. So I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough. Now go back and hold that idea in your awareness and read it as a full sentence to yourself. So I'm having the thought that, whatever it is. So I'm having the thought that. And notice what arises as you hold this idea in your awareness. What do you notice about what arises this time? Is it slightly stronger? Is it weaker? Or is it about the same? And you're just noticing. And just notice if those sensations have eased a little or if they've changed. We're just noticing. We're not trying to change anything. Okay, now let's workshop it a little further. Go back to that statement. Now put noticing that I'm ... So now it will read as a full sentence. I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough, or whatever it is, ... And once you've written that down, see if you can hold that one in your awareness. And just notice what arises. So I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that ... Now usually what you'll find is that it tends to soften, it's not as intense, it doesn't feel like it's you. It feels a bit like I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough. Doesn't mean I'm not good enough, it just, I'm having a thought. Because thoughts are not facts, even when they tell you that they are. And that's the most liberating thing about this. So really, all I did was go from, okay, this is where we're in thinking mind, I'm ... I'm not good enough, or blah. Okay, so then we just go, actually no, I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough. I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough. And that is a really kind of powerful way of just unhooking and softening the blow of some of those really destructive kind of, or negative thoughts. Does that make sense for people? Yeah, okay. So hopefully that will be useful for you. That's something that you can actually do outside of this if you find yourself getting into a bit of a funk with that, okay? And again, I'm happy to take some questions at the end, or if someone wants to have a chat one-on-one, I'm more than happy to have a chat after this. Anyone who comes to see me in my private practice will know about this bus. I've had people see me and they've come and seen me again after 5 years and go, Marg, that bloody bus, I will never forget it. This is a really, really good metaphor to use, okay? As I talk to you about this bus, I'm going to read you a little story. And this is why I explain it to people. So let's pretend that this is your bus. You are the bus driver and you're driving your bus in the direction that you want your life to go. The bus that you're driving is full of passengers. And passengers represent your thoughts, feelings, memories, and emotions. And as you drive along, you can hear the passengers mumbling and saying things like, you're a loser, don't do that, it's too risky, you can't do that, what are you thinking, that kind of thing. Often I have people say, some of those things that come up for me is that I can't do this, I wouldn't, I won't be good enough and so forth. So I hear a lot of I can't do this. And I had one patient in particular who, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in a therapy session, and she said, I just need to stick the bunch of can'ts at the back. Which was gorgeous. But so we had a good old belly laugh on that one. So these passengers that, get stuck into you, you're a loser, don't do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. As long as you stick to the same old route, the same old patterns, they kind of pull their heads in a little bit, okay? The real problem is when you try to turn into a different direction. You want to develop a new pattern or a new way of doing things. Now, people think that when you try something new, it's going to be easy. I've just made the decision, I'll go forward. Well, actually, that's the time when you're more likely to hear your anxious voice and your I can't do this voice is when you go in the direction of what you want to do. So this is what happens. When you try and turn in the direction of I'm going to do something new, the new experiences avenue, the passengers get unruly and really upset. The moment you push the turn signal to the left or right, the passengers leave their seats, they stand in the aisle, they start yelling at you. What are you doing? You can't go that way. Remember what happened last time? You failed. Just keep doing what you're doing. This isn't going to end well. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. So basically the passengers get louder and louder. Therefore you decide it would be best to listen to them, and so you just sort of do a bit of a 180 and you just stay on the same old road. Okay? Makes them be quiet, if you like. But then some time goes by and you start getting bored. You're tired of driving down the same old street and you want to do something new. So nonetheless, when you once again try turning down a different road, the same scenario takes place. The passengers riot, they scream, they make threats. By now you've had it. You stop the bus, you tell the passengers to get off, but there are no doors on this bus. And it doesn't matter how hard you push, they simply resist. You give up, you sit back down at the wheel of the bus and you start driving down the same old route again. But then one day it suddenly hits you. The passengers can yell at you. They can threaten you, but they can't actually hurt you. They just get loud. So that's when you decide to drive down, okay, new experiences avenue, no matter how upset the passengers get. And sure enough, as soon as you turn, all hell breaks loose. And nonetheless, so you stick to your guns and keep going down this road. After all, it's your bus and you're the one who's driving. And you feel somewhat anxious and you want to keep driving. However, the fear is making you want to do a 180. Now, this is the point where you ask yourself a really important question. And here it is. If I follow this thought, or if I act on this thought, does it take me closer to the life I want? Or does it take me back to stuck and suffering? So if you listen to that passenger that says, it's too hard, you'll fail, blah, 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 does it take you back to stuck and suffering, or does it take you further to where you want to be? So this is a really powerful question to ask when you're stuck in those moments of, okay, well, do I try something new? Do I just make room for the anxiety? Do I breathe into it? Do I expect it to be there and just kind of plough ahead anyway? And if you can do this, because I think at the moment, I need to also point out, we're not interested in how true or false these ideas are. We're only interested in how helpful or unhelpful this thinking is for you. Okay? So when you ask yourself this question, congratulations, you are being mindful. And you are making a mindful decision. So you are mindfully responding rather than mindlessly reacting and repeating old patterns. Is that making sense for people? I'm seeing some nods, which is yay. Thank you for the nods. It's reaffirming. So that can be a really useful metaphor for pulling you out of a problematic pattern of behaviour. People therapists use this in depression, in anxiety, in eating disorders, in trauma. even psychosis. So these are actually really, really useful metaphors, and I hope that you get something out of that and then you can take away with you after today. But, okay, so we'll move on. Okay, so mindfulness and being fully present in our lives really does help us cultivate stability of attention. It helps us respond more effectively to our emotional states and short circuits unhelpful thinking. But is that all there is to the resilience here? Now, Ross Harris talks about this when he talks about the idea that presence without purpose, so mindfulness without meaning, if you like. So presence without purpose is like a boat without sails. It has no direction or compass, it just drifts, and it's at the mercy of the currents of the water. So purpose and meaning are, kind of like our life's compass, if you will. And it helps give our life direction, and the presence allows us to make the most of the journey. So mindfulness and meaning marry very nicely together. Okay. So these are the bigger questions. I'm actually not going to workshop this with you, and the reason is because these questions and your pursuit of these answers will take fairly deep reflection and thoughtful consideration over time. I don't want to try and cram such profound contemplation to a few minutes. But I invite you to reflect on these questions regularly. If I had the time, I would love to sit down with each and every one of you and ask you what brought you to what you are studying, what brought you to this work. Where many of your peers said that's too hard, that's too depressing. But somehow this is you've been called to do this. For you, there's a lot of meaning in this. So that's a really, really important thing, is why am I drawn to this work? Now, I invite you to reflect on your points of meaning, because if you find and connect with the meaningful points in your life, not just your work, but in your life, you have a reason to keep going. And that is one of the key hallmarks of resilience. So what is meaningful to you will help get you out of bed. It gives you a purpose. And to keep going, especially when the chips are down. I'm going to talk to you about this gentleman here, Viktor Frankl. Has anyone heard of him? So Viktor Frankl was a very famous psychiatrist and neurologist, and he was also a survivor of Auschwitz. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he developed a psychotherapy called logotherapy. And the psychotherapy is about finding meaning in one's life and connecting with those points of meaning. And he did this based on his experiences. Let me explain. So the first part of this book that he wrote, the first half of it, Man's Search for Meaning, is solely about his experiences in the concentration camps. It is not easy reading. The second part of it talks about the therapy a little bit more. But the thing that is absolutely fascinating about his experiences is that what he noticed was that amongst his fellow prisoners in the concentration camps, the ones who were more likely to survive versus the ones who perished were the ones who were able to create meaning out of their experiences. So it helped them endure unspeakable brutality and starvation, you name it, which is unbelievable, actually. So his work inspired more kind of meaning-centred psychotherapies in the years after he published his work, and there's certainly meaning-centred psychotherapies in my area of expertise, which is cancer and palliative care. So when I'm sitting at the bedside of somebody who is terminally ill, we talk a lot about meaning and parts of their life where they found the most meaning, and it's incredibly profound conversations. Okay, so this is Viktor Frankl's little quote here. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances and to choose one's own way. And I hope this sort of sums up the thread of how I think resilience can be cultivated in various ways. So finding connection with sources of meaning, really bringing awareness and self-reflection to your mindset and the way that you navigate your emotional world and how you take care of yourself. And I think, with mindset, it's not set in stone. You can work with that, okay? I think that's probably hopefully the most positive message that I've got here is whatever, you may have a really kind of fixed mindset, or it might be really tough, but actually you can work with that. Okay, so So lastly, and while I think I've got, how much time have I got? I've gone over time, sorry. Okay, I've gone over time a little bit. This is the second last slide. Okay, so I want to dedicate this last bit to the students and the workers in community service because you're going to do some profound work. Your work will be rewarding, but it will be tough. And you'll experience things at times that will make you flinch, and it will affect you. It will impact you. That's okay, you're human. And continue to keep that humanness, okay? But please take care of your personal responses so that they don't kind of cloud your professional work or your interactions, but also so that it doesn't burn you out. Child protection is brutal. Again, you can see some things that can make your hair stand on end, but at the same time, you can have some incredibly rewarding experiences in your work. So self-care is not going to be a luxury for you. It is essential, okay? Consider getting, obviously regular supervision. I've been doing this for 17 years. I still have supervision. Consider your own therapy. Just have a way of taking care of your inner world because that's probably going to be the thing that's most impacted. And I have to tell you, when I worked with homeless youth back in the day, it was a long time ago, but it was initiation by fire. And it is some of the hardest work I've ever done. And some of those stories will stay with me for my whole life. So please just take good care of your responses. It's a key way to protect yourself from burnout, and of course it promotes resilience. And I'm going to finish up by saying that as someone who debriefs healthcare professionals all the way from reception staff to senior doctors at St Vincent's, the one thing that I notice about people when they sort of start to let life get on top of them or they don't feel as resilient is that they begin to lose themselves in their work and they forget to tend to other areas outside of their work. And I think particularly when you're working community service, it's easy to go above and beyond, I think, particularly when you're working with humans who are suffering. So please remember your work outside, or your experiences outside of your work, and just tend to that part just as much. And finally, it's easy to get very busy in the roles of life. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a student or wherever you are. Life gets incredibly busy and it demands more and more of you as a role as a student, as a partner, as a parent, or as a child. And you can start to lose touch with other aspects of yourself, particularly those parts that love to dance or sing or do photography or whatever it is that you used to love. And sometimes we can kind of we get too busy and we sort of lose connection with those parts of ourselves, but actually those are the things that make our heart feel nourished. So I'm going to leave you with another invitation, the last invitation, if you like, in the form of a poem by Derek Walcott that invites you to re-engage with those perhaps forgotten aspects of yourself in your journey. And the poem is called Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself. To the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, and who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the desperate notes, peel your whole image from the mirror and sit and feast on your life. And there I will finish the talk and take any questions, but thank you very much for having me.